Welcome back. Another episode of the Whole Nine Yards here, 11:52 p.m. Sunday night. The games are all over. Packers Titans was not a very competitive game, but we'll start off with actually some MLB news. Blake Snell was traded from the Rays to the Padres for a couple prospects. Brandon, I'll get your first reactions to that.
Yeah, so this was kind of surprising. I guess more so that it just happened tonight. I think this trade, it seemed like they were trying to trade Blake Snell ever since the World Series happened. I don't think most people thought they'd actually do it because he still has 3 years on his contract left, and it's like an average of like $13 or $14 million. And I'd say he's probably a top like 12 pitcher when he's healthy, maybe top 10. It kind of depends. Obviously, he won a Cy Young in 2018, but he was injured in 2019. Then last year he was pretty good. So I would say he's probably top 10, top 12 when he's healthy. The Padres gave up Luis Patino, Francisco Mejia, Blake Hunt, and Cole Wilcox. It's really the first two guys. They're at least the headliners, at least definitely the first guy. He's the number 3 prospect in the Padres organization. He's one of the top prospects in baseball. He pitched a little bit last year. He definitely has the stuff to be a number 1, which is, the reason for them trading Snell. That's kind of what the Rays do. He's 28. Even though he's on a really good contract, you'd rather get the guy who's younger, who probably has the same potential, if not better potential, who's going to be on your team. He's probably not going to be a free agent. I don't exactly know, but probably for another 6 or 7 years at the least, I would say. And they'd probably sign him to a contract when it comes close to that anyways for pretty cheap, like they do, like what they did with Snell, what they do with David Price, like 7-8 years ago when they had him. Francisco Mejia, he's been a top prospect. He's like a catcher, outfielder type. He can kind of play multiple positions. He never really has been that good in the majors, but it seems like when you go to the Rays, you do get better. So I guess that's kind of what they're hoping. Then the other two guys, I'm not really sure about them. I haven't really looked into them, but if they're prospects from the Padres, I'd assume they definitely have potential. It just seems like everyone in their farm system's pretty good. So, I mean, most people may freak out about the trade, at least from the Rays side. I wouldn't freak out about it. If you follow baseball and know the Rays, this is kind of what they do. So I'm not exactly surprised that they did it. But most people who maybe have, average knowledge of baseball may be surprised about it. So I don't know what you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about it just seems like like a Rays trade. I mean, this is probably the most value you're going to get for Snell in his career right now would probably be, the point to capitalize on it. I think it's kind of a Belichick thing, get rid of him a year too early rather than a year too late. We've seen with many, top 10 pitchers, top 10 players in general that if they're on the last year of their deal and, they want out or something, like you're just not going to get nearly as much for them. I mean, I think you got a lot for Snell considering there's a lot of other players that you just sometimes they're traded and you're like, wow, that's really not a lot. You also get the Patino guy who seems like he's not going to be leaving. He's not going to be a free agent for twice as long as Snell. For the Padres, though, I mean, it still makes sense for them. I mean, they've got an insane farm system. They're picking up at least a top 15 pitcher in the league on a cheap contract still for 3 more years. So I think it's ultimately a win-win, at least right now. In the long term, it's a gamble on the Rays side because you never know how the prospects are really going to turn out. They could just all be bad. And then, you just lost a top 15 pitcher in 3 years of his prime, basically. But yeah, I mean, I think ultimately it's a win-win for both sides.
This definitely makes the Padres a World Series contender. I'd say in the NL, they're probably a top 3 team. And the whole league, they're probably a top 5 team, depending on what else they do. I mean, they were looking to trade for maybe Darvish, maybe sign Bauer, and now they get Snell. They could definitely still sign Bauer if they wanted to. So they're probably not done, and their lineup is and their bullpens was one of the best. I mean, last year they had injuries in the bullpen, but they were still pretty good, and then their lineup's one of the best. So I'd say they're definitely one of the favorites for the World Series for next year, and probably the years going forward too.
Yeah. Okay. With that out of the way, we'll get into the games. We'll start with the NFC East. I'll start with the most boring game. I won't even necessarily talk about the game that much. It was Panthers and Washington. In the predictions, I ended up taking Washington to win that game. Unfortunately, they lost 20-13. My first reaction is Dwayne Haskins might be one of the worst top 10 picks I've seen in a long time. Him and Josh Rosen, and I think Haskins is probably worse than Rosen. Haskins is horrible. I don't know. There's not much to say. He's bad. Uh, Not having Smith for this game really hurt them a lot. I think if you have Smith, there's a very solid chance you end up coming out with a W here, and you'd also have the division. So, I mean, yeah, it's just unfortunate. But it does kind of make it more exciting. The Cowboys beat the Eagles 37-17. So, I mean, maybe the Cowboys end up getting that division dub. We'll see. I mean, as a Cowboys fan, what's your takeaways from this week?
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that Haskins was starting, it was announced earlier today. I was happy because I knew that they were most likely going to lose that game. Even if Smith was going to start, I was at least holding out hope that the Panthers could win that game, but it definitely would have been tougher. But with Haskins, it was kind of almost guaranteed that they were going to lose that game. He even got benched, which was pretty sad. So he's definitely done in Washington. He's probably, I mean, I don't know about done in the NFL, but he's probably pretty close to being done in the NFL. But the Cowboys game, that was a great win. I was very pleased watching that game. We played really well. It started off really bad. It was 14-3. Our defense could not stop anything. I thought they were going to run the ball the entire game. It seemed, even though they were up 14-3, they kind of stopped running the ball, which I was kind of surprised about. And then when the game got, when we outscored them, I think it was like 34-3 at one point. After it was 14-3 because it was 37, ended up 37-17. So yeah, we outscored them 34-3 after that point. So I don't know what happened, but we turned it on. Dalton was great. He threw for almost 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had a pick. It was actually, it was to Lamb. If he just led him like 2 more yards down the field, that's probably a touchdown, but it wasn't the worst thing. Zeke looked pretty good. I was actually pretty surprised at how good he looked. He had 100 yards. It was on 19 carries too, and he just looked faster. I don't know if maybe that week was like, I guess that week really did good for him, even though he was nursing an injury. He looked really good, and our receivers were great. Our defense, again, it was better after the first quarter and a half. We got turnovers. I think that one fumble by Hurts was pretty lucky. I thought he was down. I'm pretty surprised they reviewed it and somehow it was still a fumble, which again, I don't know how you make that call, but I'd take it because they were probably going to score a touchdown there. And at that point, it would have been a 1-possession game. So, but we played better. We should have won the game anyways. And the Eagles are out, which I'm happy about. I never liked the Eagles, so I'm happy that they're out. But I still need them to win next week. They play Washington. We play the Giants. We're the 1:00 game, and the Eagle-Washington game is the Sunday night game. So if we lose, then it doesn't matter. We're out. But if we win, then we're waiting till Sunday night to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, my first reactions from that Cowboys game was, if they had Prescott, they're probably a 9-7, 10-6 team. And it was just it wasn't necessarily that game itself, but I guess I was probably, I don't know. I'm not going to say I'm wrong on Mike McCarthy. Like, I still don't think he's a great coach at all. Maybe he was the best he could have gotten in the offseason. I don't know if that's true or not. I'd have to, be in Jerry Jones's shoes there. But yeah, I mean, I think if Prescott doesn't get hurt early in the year, there's at least 2 or 3 more games that you win, and you're probably looking at 9-7, 10-6. I mean, it's interesting for next year. I think even if you make the playoffs this year as the Cowboys, I mean, you're probably not going anywhere. But next year, I think this team is, they're going to be the favorites for the division, probably, right? Like, definitely.
Yeah, I would assume so.
Unless something major happens, but they're going to be the favorites for the division. They're probably not going to have too hard of a schedule. I mean, just being in the NFC East, that's just how it is. But I'm interested to see how Zeke does. I mean, he looked promising today. He looked like he just was faster. He was better. I'm not sure if that was just a 1-week thing or if he's going to turn it around now, and hopefully he's not just completely toast and he doesn't get cut in training camp next year. The full off season next year is going to give them a lot, but do you think that the Cowboys are going to be the division winners this year? Or?
I would say so. It would be interesting to see if Smith returns next week. It looked like he was going to return today, so I'd say he probably plays next week, but who knows? Again, I hope he doesn't because the Eagles definitely should win that game. The Eagles are definitely a pretty good team with Hurts. I mean, you definitely lead the offense down the field, which is really all you need to do against Washington. As long as you put up – if Smith isn't playing, as long as you put up more than like 16 points, you'll probably win the game. So if Smith's not playing, I definitely go Eagles in that game. But we still have to win against the Giants. If we don't win, then it doesn't matter. So and talking about the Giants, I mean, they played the Ravens today. I don't think anyone ever thought they were going to win the game, but it was really never even close. They only put up 13 points, and they got a touchdown late, so they didn't really do anything today. Their offense is terrible. So with the way our defense is playing and the way the Giants' offense has been playing, I really don't see how we don't win this game. And especially our offense has put up, I think, 30, 41, and 37 the last 3 games. So it looks like we're hitting our stride at the perfect time, and all the other teams are falling. So, I mean, I think it's our division to win. I think most people would pick us to win the division after this week.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the Eagles, I mean, you're not going to purposely lose the game because I mean, if you're Peterson, you're still coaching for your job, and Hurts is playing for his potential starting job next season. And if he plays well and he wins, I mean, and he ruins the Cowboys. Well, if he gets the Cowboys into the playoffs, I mean.
Well, I mean, either way, if they lose, then Washington gets in, and if they win, then
yeah. I mean, so technically he'd be getting the Cowboys into the playoffs, but if he plays well in this last week of the regular season, I mean, that means a lot for him. I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I mean, Smith playing obviously is going to have a huge impact on that game. I would assume Haskins does not start next week. If Smith does not start next week as well, Heineke or whatever, I don't even know how to say, but I mean, anyways, yeah. I mean, you have to hope Smith doesn't play. I mean,
yeah. Even if Smith plays, he's probably. I mean, he's already injured. Obviously, it's the leg.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the injury that he had was on the same leg, so you'd assume he'd be even more injured. Like, even if he's technically healthy. So.
But I mean, honestly, if I'm Washington, I'm doing everything I can to make sure he's out on that field because even Alex Smith on one leg is still better than Taylor Heineke and Dwayne Haskins. So. Yeah. I mean, so
I mean, we'll see what happens next week. They moved the Washington game up to the Sunday night game, so
yeah,
I thought they'd maybe move our game up to the Sunday night game, but I guess not.
Quickly though, moving off the NFC East, unless you have anything else left to say, the Seahawks did beat the Rams, which means the Seahawks now clinch the NFC West. I mean, so my first reaction on that is I don't even know that the Seahawks are necessarily the better overall team than the Rams. I think they definitely have a better quarterback. You could argue they have a better coach. I think it's pretty even there, but the Rams are they might be the most inconsistent team in the NFL. They're at least up there. Goff, inconsistent. The offense is inconsistent. The defense, I think, has been the strong suit of this team the whole year. I don't know if I don't think it's been the best defense in the league, but at times it certainly looked like you could say that. I mean, obviously Aaron Donald is probably the best defensive player in the league, at least, and he's probably been that for the past few years. Ramsey, you could argue, is the best cornerback in the league. I mean, their defense is insane. But again, it's the offense that has just been so inconsistent. If the Rams actually don't even have a playoff spot guaranteed to them right now, do they?
No, it comes out next week.
Yeah. So they could technically miss the playoffs. If they miss the playoffs, I mean, then you have to seriously look at Goff right. I mean, I don't know who you wouldn't. I don't think you'd look at McVay and be like, you're not going to fire McVay. I don't think he's even on the hot seat necessarily. I think it's on Goff. And if you're Goff, I mean, you're kind of playing for your job these next few weeks. You really got to win next week. And I don't think you can afford to just be one and done, especially if it's, in blowout fashion or if it's not a super close game against a solid team.
And I'm pretty sure, I mean, looking to next week, I'm pretty sure if the Rams play the Cardinals, if they lose that game, and the Bears who play the Packers next week, which, I mean, we'll see. The Packers still need to win to get the 1 seed, so we'll see what happens. But if the Bears do win and the Cardinals beat the Rams, and the Rams are out of the playoffs, so
it's not super unrealistic.
It's not too good for the Rams. But you're right. There's such an inconsistent team. I don't even really like Seattle that much. I mean,
I don't either.
These are two teams that are, I mean, you could see, like, it was like 6-6 the entire game. Like, it was a terrible game. And it really ended up being a terrible game, and the offense never got going. But I mean, the fact that the Seahawks they can possibly get the 1 seed, like if the I think it's the Seahawks are 11-4 and the Packers are 12-3. So if the Seahawks win, the Packers lose, and the Saints lose, I'm pretty sure the tiebreaker between the Seahawks and the Packers, the Seahawks would get the 1 seed, which would be crazy.
I mean, that would be obviously – I mean, whoever gets the 1 seed, that's obviously a big help. But considering the Seahawks probably don't have the best roster, maybe not even top 2 or 3 in the NFC, that'd be a huge help for them. I just don't know that they have the defense. I don't even know that they have – I'd say they probably have the offense, but they probably don't have the defense. I mean, yeah. I think in the NFC that 1 seed means much more than it does in the AFC, because in the AFC, I mean, so this week the Chiefs got the 1 seed, but in the AFC, like, I don't know, I still think the Chiefs, even if they didn't have the 1 seed, are the favorites. We can talk about the game after, but in the NFC, I really think you could argue whoever gets the 1 seed is the favorite. I don't think that there's one team that's significantly better than the other. If the Seahawks get the 1 seed, they might just be my favorite to make it to the Super Bowl, just because you get the bye. I mean, the bye is obviously is huge, and having home field advantage and the divisional round or whatever, and the conference championship, it's huge. It's huge, especially, you don't want to go to Lambeau. You don't really want to go down to New Orleans either. So
I would say the worst possible number 1 seed for any team in the NFC has got to be the Packers, because you're gonna have to go to Lambeau. And I mean, we saw tonight, it was snowing. If the Saints have to play in that, there's no chance that they win that game. I mean, Tampa. I mean, Brady's played in cold weather games, but we'll have to see how the team is. Even Seattle, I'd be kind of wary about them. I mean, there's most teams definitely do not want to go to Lambeau to play, especially if it's going to be snowing, which it definitely could be.
I don't know. I think if the Packers get the 1 seed, which right now is the most likely scenario, I'm going to have a tough time picking somebody over the Packers.
Yeah.
The Saints, I don't think I'd be able to, and I mean, we'll get into it next week, but I just don't think I'd be able to with Breeze, and it's a dome team, and I've never really liked the Saints because they're a dome team at times. You're not going to Lambeau and winning a game in the snow and 15-degree weather there. It's not possible. I mean, it's just not possible. I don't think it would happen. I mean, like the Bucs would probably have a better chance, even though, they're a warm weather team, but Seattle wouldn't have as bad of a chance as the Saints either, but still.
Who do you think gets the 7 or the 6-7 seeds in the NFC between the Rams, Bears, and Cardinals?
So if the Cardinals lose, they're out. Is that correct?
Yeah. Whoever loses the Cardinals-Rams game next week is out.
No.
The Rams have a chance if the Bears lose also, but let's say the Bears win, then both teams, whoever lost.
I mean, I can't even say the Bears win, though, because the Packers are still playing for that game. But
no, you're right.
I can't just say, like, I'm going to assume that. I would – ooh. I mean, yeah, that's tough. That is really tough. So when are these games actually? Because that kind of changes.
I was
things.
Just looking at that. So the Bears-Packers game is at 4:25. The Cardinals-Rams at 4:25, and the Seahawks are at 4:25.
So it doesn't – okay.
4:25. So
they're all going to be playing.
Yeah, they're all playing at the same time. So no one's going to – like, it's not like the Packers can rest their guys at halftime if they know they have the 1 seed or anything like that.
I mean – I'm going to have to – I would – as of right now at least, I mean, this isn't like a final thing, but, off the top of my head, I'd go Rams over Cardinals. I think when it comes down to it, last week of the year, Rams are at home. Not that they even have the biggest home field. I mean, it's whatever. But I would pick the Rams. And then because of that, I mean, I'm going with the Bears regardless as the 7 seed. So –
Well, I would say the thing that helps – I don't even know, because the Rams, it doesn't seem like Goff's really going to play next week. He has a broken thumb. At least that's what they said. So even if he does play, like, he's definitely – I mean, he's not good anyway. So if he's playing with a broken thumb, he's definitely not going to be good. So, like, the Rams could lose, but then the Bears could lose, which means the Rams could get in anyways. So I guess that's what you're really hoping for, because if Goff's not playing, you're most likely going to lose that game against the Cardinals. So you just have to hope that the Bears would lose, which, I mean, it definitely seems like they would. So, but I don't know. I mean, the Bears, I mean, I know they played not the best opponents, but they've put up 30 points in 4 straight games. It's definitely not something that you can't look at.
I mean, so from watching like the halftime reports, all like CBS crew, all these crews. I mean, they're not necessarily high on the Bears, but yeah, they're giving them looks. Personally, I'm still just I don't know. It's so hard for me to invest in Trubisky, and I know he's essentially done nothing but lead this team to wins this year, but he still makes horrible plays. There was
Yeah, the
that pick he
interception too.
threw. That was, I mean, I don't know.
I was watching that live, and I was just like, throw it away. I don't know why I didn't throw that away. That was terrible.
Like if he with the Bears roster and they're going to be on the road, if Trubisky does that once in the playoffs, like that, you're not winning that game. I mean, I don't know. It's just,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
trust Trubisky in the playoffs. I mean, he might make it just because I mean, if the Rams win, then they're in regardless. But
yeah,
yeah. So for the Goff injury though, it says from what I'm reading, it says he's unlikely to play next week. It's the injury is going to eventually require surgery. I guess it kind of rides on that. I don't know. Like if Goff plays, I'd definitely pick the Rams. If he doesn't, who would start? I don't even know who their backup quarterback is.
it's a guy from Wake Forest. I think I forget his name, but it's like something with a W. It's like he's never played a professional game. So
John Wolford.
John,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I mean, you can't trust them against even how inconsistent the Cardinals are. Also, I mean, every team in the NFC West is inconsistent. I mean, with him starting, you'd have to go Cardinals there.
probably. Yeah. I mean, yeah. But honestly though, okay, this is my official prediction. Or not official, but for today. I think I'm going to go Cardinals and Rams make it. And I think Packers beat the Bears. I think Packers win against the Bears. Packers get the 1 seed. I think Cardinals probably beat the Rams, but because of that, they're both in. So I'd assume that means Cardinals are 6, Rams are 7, but I might be wrong on that. And actually, I don't even know if it would be that. I think it might be still Rams 6, Cardinals 7. But regardless, those are the 2 teams I have making it. I think the Packers win and get the 1 seed. I don't think they're going to be. I just don't think they're going to overlook this game. I think it's going to mean a lot to them. They need the 1 seed, or I don't know if they need it, but it's a big help. It's a really big help.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably agree with that. I mean, I don't really see the Bears beating the Packers. I'd be surprised if they beat them, but I'm pretty sure they're the home team in that game. So, I mean, I don't know, who knows, but I would say the Packers probably win that game, and the Cardinals probably win also. So, I would say Cardinals Rams probably are in the playoffs in the NFC.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, probably. We'll see. We'll talk about. You want to talk about the Saturday games in the NFC? We'll get into we
Yeah,
could quickly talk about the Bucs. I mean, like 30 seconds. There's really not much to talk about. The Bucs just bulldozed the Lions. The Lions first off, they don't have Patricia. They don't have Quinn, and they also didn't have what I forget how many how many coaches they didn't have
like
there
4 or
that day.
5 coaches missing.
I mean, you're essentially playing. It's like a professional team versus like your town recreational little 3rd grade basketball team that has like a dad as a head coach. I mean, I don't know. It's like I can't look in. It's hard for me to look into it that much. That's just the reality of it. I mean, I know we talked about, the Bucs are going to click and all this, and the offense is going to get it together. But and I'm not, and maybe they did. I can't really tell. It's against a 5-10 Lions team with no coaches. Like the same thing happened to the Patriots in 2018. Typically they click it together like November, and you can clearly tell because they compete and they beat good teams. And that 2018 year they beat like the Bills and they beat like the Jets, and those were they were 2 bad teams. And McCourty was saying like, oh, like we found it, like blah blah blah, and I was like, no, this team's garbage. Like it's not going anywhere. But I mean, I guess the offense found it. They found out that they're more of a running and play action team, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl. I don't know if that's what the Bucs, if they legitimately found their identity or not, at least on the offensive side of the field. I don't know. I don't know what you think, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really going to look into it that much. It's like I've been saying this for a while now. After their bye week, after like I think it was week 12, they've definitely looked better offensively. And obviously, this game, I'd say it's probably an outlier in a good way, and because I mean it was 34-0 at halftime, it was never close. And Brady, I mean, you can't deny that Brady looked phenomenal in the throws that he's making. I mean, his deep ball is probably one of the best aspects of his game and he's 42, 43. It's probably better than he's really ever been.
the deep ball.
The deep ball's been pretty good this year.
I mean, I think it's probably been better in the latter half.
And maybe I don't know about the completion percentage and all that, but I mean, you can't say his arm's dead. I mean,
It's
he can
no, it's
still throw
not
the
a
ball
dead. It's
40,
his
50
arm's
yards.
not dead, and he can throw the ball deep, but his deep ball accuracy has never been, it's never been his strength. That's for sure. It's probably been one of his weakest things, at least in my opinion. His prime deep ball accuracy was definitely like 2007, 2009, like Randy Moss years, but I mean,
Well,
he's always been like a Drew Brees type of, like slants, check downs. But yeah, I mean, he can definitely throw the deep ball. He can definitely throw the deep ball. And in this Bucs offense, you're with these types of receivers, you're definitely not just throwing slants and stuff. So yeah.
All right. I guess moving off NFC, I guess, unless you do something else, NFC.
Nah, we can go to AFC games.
All right. Well, the late night game on Saturday night was a great game. It was Dolphins Raiders. This was the game that I think both of us were looking at when we made our playoff predictions. And we were saying this is the game that if the Dolphins are going to make the playoffs, they have to win. And if they lose this game, they're most likely not going to make the playoffs. They probably shouldn't have won the game in the sense that they had 19 seconds left to go, 50 yards to get in field goal range or whatever. And the Raiders just had a lapse defensively and let a guy get loose. And they also had the face mask, which was another 15 yards, which obviously killed them. We'll talk about the game in a second, but I just want to know your reaction. Did you think the right move was kicking the field goal at the end for the Raiders, or like wasting time kicking the field goal, or just go for the touchdown?
I'd just go for the touchdown. I mean, hindsight's 2020, but I'm not getting too cute with it. I don't care about. I know we've talked about analytics stuff in the past. I don't think this is necessarily with them something that we talked about, but I'm not going to look too much into it. Hindsight's 2020, so I think both calls, like, whatever. Like, I don't think either are like egregious, but I'm going for the touchdown there to avoid exactly this. I mean, you threw the game. Like, I think it's just you have to look at it and be like, you just made the wrong call. Like,
yeah, I mean, you're third and goal at the 1 yard line. I mean, even if you run the ball and don't get it, the time 40 seconds still goes off the clock and you can still kick the field goal. So, I mean, I guess the only thing, what they were worrying about was a fumble, but I mean, what are the odds?
I mean, you can't
not to jump. You tell them not to jump over the line. You tell them you just have to push it in and go through your offensive line. That's the only way. That's the way you don't fumble when you're at the goal line. So I don't know.
I mean,
I agree that they should have just went for the touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, I just like being scared of a fumble is just so stupid. Like,
you can't be thinking about that.
The only time you don't run the ball to avoid fumbling is when you have a win and you can just kneel the ball. That's the only time I'm ever doing that. No, I completely agree. Like, if you do score the touchdown, I guess there's more time on the clock for the Dolphins, but I mean, how much more time are we talking? Like, not a lot of time. I mean, we're technically talking like an extra 35, 40 seconds, but like
there was a minute and 5 seconds. There would have been a minute left.
I mean, that's not a lot of time.
Dolphins would have had no timeouts.
Yeah, so. That's just, I mean, honestly, about the most you can hope for, barring like a defensive meltdown with a minute 5 and no timeouts, is a Hail Mary attempt or two. So like, I mean, I don't know. I don't think the call is very good. I mean, I haven't watched many like expert analysts or whatever talk about it, but I'm sure that they probably would agree that it wasn't the right call. I mean, obviously they probably wouldn't because they lost the game, but yeah. I think actually when we definitely did talk about this game before a few weeks ago and, talking about the Dolphins Raiders. I think we were both initially on the other side. We were, we said, yep, the Dolphins have to win this game to make it, but I don't think either of us had the Dolphins winning this game to make the playoffs. No, I think we both had the Raiders in.
I didn't have the Dolphins making my playoffs.
Yeah, no, I didn't either, or at least our first version of it. I think we both had Raiders making it in the wild card. Clearly both wrong on that one.
No, I didn't have Raiders, no.
I don't think I had the Raiders in my like official one, but there was like one we did like a couple months ago, and I think I did have the Raiders in it, but
like back then maybe, yeah. The one that we did, our like official playoff bracket, I had Titans, Browns, and Ravens. Which I mean,
I think I had Colts. I had Colts, Browns, and Ravens. I'm pretty sure.
We had It was the same teams, just we had division winners different. But I guess kind of moving from Dolphins to looking at Ravens. I mean that was a tough loss for the Ravens because if the Dolphins lose that game, then the Ravens they're going to make the playoffs. Obviously they beat the Giants today. Then they play the Bengals next week. They're going to win that game. So it's going to be tough for the Ravens to get in. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't looked at exactly what they need, but they definitely need a loss from the Dolphins. I think a loss from the Dolphins, Browns, either a loss from both those teams, and I think they'll be able to secure a playoff win. So which is still possible because the Browns play the Steelers and the Dolphins play the Bills.
Are the Bills? Okay, hold on. Let me check the standings, but I don't know that the Bills are necessarily playing.
The Bills
okay.
right now are in the 3 seed, but if they win and the Steelers lose, then they have the tiebreaker over the Steelers at 12-4. So they'd be the 2 seed. So I mean, I guess you'd rather have the 2. I mean, in the AFC, do you really even feel like playing any of these wildcard teams? I mean, any one of these wildcard teams could beat you.
Well, okay. Assuming it's the let's just say it's the Dolphins, the Browns, and the Titans that are the wildcard teams. I'd rather play the Dolphins out of those 3. That's for sure. And if we include the Ravens in this scenario, I think the Dolphins are clearly the worst team out of those 4 teams.
Well, right now the standings is Dolphins at 5, Ravens at 6, and Browns at 7, and then the Colts are in the 8 spot, but they're all 10-5. So, I mean, obviously we'll have to see what happens next week and how the seedings shake up, but I mean, and again, the Colts could win the division, the Titans could be in the wild card, or the Titans could even miss the playoffs. So, I mean, there's so much it all rides on what happens next week, but the Ravens being able to play the Bengals, the Colts play the Jaguars, again, the Dolphins play the Bills, and the Browns play the Steelers. I mean, you'd definitely rather be the Ravens than the Colts in those situations. And even the Titans, they play the Texans, which definitely a kind of tough game, but not as tough as Steelers and Bills. So it's really just if the Browns win or the Dolphins win. It really comes down to that, I would say.
I mean, if you're the Colts right now, you have to be so upset that you lost that game, though, because, if you win that game, you basically win the division. I mean, you'd have half a game up on the Titans, and you'd be playing the Jaguars. You'd be hosting the Jaguars, who are – well, technically they actually clinched the number 1 pick, so they could technically try to win that game or whatever, if you want to call it that. But, I mean, they're, a 1-15 team or whatever, so it's like 1-14 team. I mean, you needed that game. You kind of had that game. It was yours to lose, and you lost it, at least in my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what your reactions from that game were, but.
I mean, they got shut out. I mean, basically for the second half. They got a field goal at 9 minutes left, but, I mean, they basically got shut out in the entire second half. And I'm still not coming away with this looking at the Steelers differently. It doesn't seem like you are either. The Colts, I'm definitely disappointed. Obviously, they're kind of my team in the AFC, besides the Chiefs, obviously. But I've been looking at the Colts as a pretty good team this year, and this was a bad loss. It's a game they definitely should have won against a team in the Steelers that has been terrible over the last couple of weeks, and they looked terrible in the first half. I mean, it looked like it was going to be a repeat of Monday night again, and against a way worse Bengals team. And the second half, they figured something out, I guess, offensively. They had 3 touchdowns in the last quarter and a couple minutes, and the defense turned it up. So I guess you have to give credit to the Steelers for that. But coming out of the game, I really don't look at them differently. But the Colts, I mean, the Packers winning against the Titans that's what they needed to happen in order to still have a chance. So I guess you would just hope that the Texans can beat the Titans if you want to win the division. That's the only chance you have.
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers at this point, after these 2 weeks, I have to look at them as a dominant running offense. They rushed for 5 yards today. I mean, that was absolutely insane. But no, I mean, yeah, I think if Carson Wentz was on this instead of Phillip Rivers, if it was Carson Wentz this week, do you think that the Colts win this game or?
Well, I don't really look at it as Phillip Rivers.
I don't.
I mean, he was 22 of 35, 270 yards, a touchdown, and a pick.
I'll say this: if the Colts are going to beat the Chiefs or beat whatever team in the divisional or conference championship, Rivers has to play better. He can't just be a middling of the road quarterback.
Well, I would say the goal for them to be able to beat the Chiefs and probably even the Bills, I would say definitely the Chiefs, but their running game, the running game had 130 yards today. It was not good in the second half. It was really good in the first half, so I think that's kind of inflated a little bit in that sense. But as long as Rivers doesn't turn the ball over and he's able just to complete passes in key situations, I think they'll be fine because their running game is really their offense. And their defense, they have one of the top defenses in the league. So I think that's kind of how they're playing it. It's kind of like the Titans, except you don't have the dominant rusher, but your rushing game is probably still the same in Taylor and Hines. And your quarterback just has to play mistake-free football. And the Colts have a much better defense than the Titans do. So I don't know. I don't feel confident in Rivers in the playoffs, but I definitely don't feel like he's going to lose us a game. As long as he doesn't turn the ball over, which this year he hasn't. He only has 9 picks this year, which for him is,
that's a lot better than previous years, or at least previous.
He's gone years, I think,
last year
20 interceptions, so it's definitely better. So
yeah. We talked about the Chiefs a little bit there, though, but do you still, after today's game against the Falcons, they barely – well, first off, actually, before I get into the Chiefs, I'll just quickly mention the Falcons, and this is nothing new, but again, I think I messaged you like during this game. It was such a – it's the epitome of the Falcons franchise losing this game. Like, you probably should have won this game if you're the Falcons, and not that it necessarily matters or means anything, but – every time it's like you manage to stay competitive and potentially even outplay the other team. And once you're in the fourth quarter and once things, start to get a little bit intense, I guess, things just unravel for the Falcons. And young Waku, that was just a 39-yard field goal. You can't miss those. Cost you at least the chance in overtime. Not that it even should have came to that. It really shouldn't even have came to that. You should have already had the game, and you already should have won that game by then. But yeah, so looking at the Chiefs, though, obviously we haven't seen the Bills play this week, but the Chiefs, this is kind of what they've looked like as of recently. I know you talked about it. You bet on the Falcons or whatever.
Yeah.
And you essentially said that this exact same thing would happen. I don't know if you, after this week, feel like the Chiefs are not necessarily not the favorites, like in terms of Vegas and stuff like that. But do you think the Bills are the better team right now?
Maybe in the way they're playing, you could say they're the better team, but overall, obviously you'd rather have the Chiefs. But I did say this, they played in 6 straight 1-possession games and they'd won all 6. So, you could look at that as a bad thing, or you could look at that as a good thing, in that even though they're in these tough games, they're winning them, but they're also a much better team than a lot of teams they've been playing. This game, this is kind of a crazy game in that they really just could not get anything going. But did you really have any doubt that they were going to lose the game?
No,
I never really thought they were ever going to lose it.
I really didn't. But that doesn't mean that the Falcons should not have won that game.
No.
I think they should have. I think they played more than well enough to win that game.
Yeah, they definitely did. And Matt Ryan put a really good game. He was 27 to 35 for 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He played a really good game. It's probably one of his best games in probably the last 2 years or anything like that, especially against the opponent that he's playing on the road. But I think this shows that when it comes to the playoffs, obviously the Chiefs will be playing better teams than the Falcons, but them having home field advantage, which is going to help. It's in any situation that they're going to be put in, I think you'll have trust in them to be able to get out of that situation and create a big play or get a turnover or just win the game. So if you have that, if you can have that much faith in one team, then I think they have to be the best team. You can't look at – I don't even know if there's another team in the NFL you could look at and be like, I just know they're going to win this game. I don't think you could do that with another team.
Yeah, I think before this, it was the Patriots were kind of in that place.
Well, I'm talking about this year, though.
No, I know. I'm just in previous years, I would say that the Pats were probably that team. But yeah, the Chiefs are really probably the only team. Maybe, yeah. There's really not another team that is like the Chiefs. But still though, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I'd like to at least see a game played well, like for the Chiefs, to make me feel good going into the playoffs. I still think they'll be able to flip the switch, if you want to call it that, in the playoffs. I still probably am going to pick them to go to the Super Bowl, potentially win that game too. But I mean, it doesn't make me feel great about this Chiefs team when, they're just sleeping through the regular season. It's similar to the Clippers. It's similar to, not, and it's hard to compare sports like that because it's much easier to, in my opinion, to flip the switch in basketball than it is in football. But I mean, we'll see. But
I mean, last year in all their playoff games, they were losing at some point. So, and not just losing. I think they were down 10 points in each one of their playoff games last year.
Yeah,
so.
I mean,
and
that's
the team is probably better this year than last year. I mean, maybe
I would say so.
I would say their overall team is probably better than last year. So
the defense is definitely
at least I would say the way they were playing last year defensively was better, but maybe if you look at the roster on defense, it may be better than last year. But I would say, again, just roster to roster, I would say this year's Chiefs were better than last year's Chiefs. But
probably,
yeah. But I mean, we'll see. I mean, they did clinch the #1 seed, like we said. So every game in the AFC, as long as they don't lose, has to go through Arrowhead, which is definitely not easy to play, even with the limited amount of fans that they'll have. But we kind of talked about the wildcard teams, but I guess should we kind of make a prediction on who we think is going to be those final wildcard teams with 1 week left?
Yeah. So I'm looking at this thing on ESPN. It's saying that FPI chances to make the playoffs for the Ravens is 94%.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure all they need to do is just win. I mean,
yeah, all they need to do is win in Cincinnati in week 17.
If all 4 teams win, I guess it would just stay the same as it is right now with the Colts being on the outside. And let's say the Titans win also. Like, let's say the Titans, Ravens, Dolphins, Browns, and Colts all win. I'm pretty sure it'd be like how it is right now, and that the Colts would be on the outside and the Ravens, Browns, and Dolphins would be in the playoffs.
All right. So the Colts, first, obviously, they need to win. Then they need a loss by either the Titans, Ravens, Browns, or Dolphins. So if any of those teams lose, the Colts are in the playoffs, assuming they win.
Yeah.
If they win and the Titans lose, the Colts get the AFC South title. FPI is giving the Colts a 78% chance of making the playoffs, which is more than the Browns. It gives the Browns 55% chance to make the playoffs. Or at least that's what it's saying in this ESPN article thing. So, I mean, yeah.
I guess, do you have more confidence in the Dolphins beating the Bills or the Browns beating the Steelers? Because I think it's going to come down to one of those 2 teams being the final spot. I would say the Colts beat the Jaguars and the Ravens beat the Bengals. So,
yeah, I would say imagine if the Browns missed the playoffs after all this.
It's definitely possible.
I don't know if I'm hoping for it to happen or not. I kind of just talked about this earlier, but I mean, I definitely think the Dolphins out of these 4 teams are the worst, but it would just be, I don't know. I think I'd be kind of happy to see the Browns miss the playoffs this year. I just don't like the Browns really, but it'd also be super interesting because, I mean, they haven't made the playoffs since when? I mean, I don't even remember. Like, I don't even know if I was alive.
I'm not sure. It was sometime in the 2000s. I'm not sure.
But yeah, I mean, and they've never won the NFC North AFC North. I said this earlier, or I texted you this, but they've never won the AFC North since it was created in 2002. Before that, it was like the AFC Central or whatever. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, yeah, the Steelers did win, but the Browns losing, like, I mean, it was just the most Browns thing I've ever seen.
Well, I mean, the one thing I'll say, and I mean, of course I picked them and I didn't know that they weren't going to have their receivers when we were doing that, but they didn't have any of their wide receivers. So it was basically trying to run the ball and throw to tight ends the entire game. So, I mean, if there's anything that you can use it as an excuse, you can use that. I still think they should have beat the Jets. I mean, coming off that win, like I was saying, coming off a big win like that, you'd assume the team would fall down. But, I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe the Jets are finding something. I mean, to win 2 straight games, I mean, not a lot of teams can actually say they've won 2 straight games. I'm not saying they're
I
gonna. I'm
think I
not
think
saying
most
like.
teams can say they've won 2 straight games
I
so
mean, the
far.
Jaguars can't say that. So.
But that's 1 out of 32. But I'm just saying, like, I mean, okay, well, all right,
I mean,
quick.
the Cowboys before last week, we didn't won 2 straight games in like a year and a half. So.
Okay, so quickly, just 30 seconds on the Jets. You think Gase keeps his job?
Well, this is something that I've been hearing, it's like listening to all the other radio stations and TV shows in New York. People have been wondering if he'll keep his jobs. He acts like he's going to be able to keep his job, and this is before they even won the 2 games. It's like he was just acting as if he was going to be able to keep his job. Their owner, he's coming back to the team. It seems like for this year, he was doing stuff for the government. Like he was the ambassador to England, I'm pretty sure, for the last 4 years. So it seems like he's going to be coming back to the team and running the team. So it'll be interesting to see if he wants to keep him or cut him loose. I think everyone on the Jets would want him to be fired. I mean, I would fire him because I just don't think he's the good enough coach. But I think he may have. I mean, they said if he would have lost today, they would have fired him. He won today, so maybe they play the Patriots next week. I'd say it's not guarantee who wins that game. So if they win that game, I honestly wouldn't know what to do. I mean, I'd fire him, but I don't know what they're gonna do.
Yeah, I'm in the same spot. I'm not keeping Gase. I feel like there's a coach every year. I think Dan Quinn, just that's one off the top of my head, where it's like, wow, this coach is just not, he needs to go. And then he rattles off. I think in Quinn's case, he went like above 500 in the last half of the season. But the Falcons started like 1-7 or something like that. So these types of, non-firings or whatever, they never seem to really work out, at least off the top of my head. I can't remember a time when it did work out. And that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I just don't think that Gase is a good coach. I mean, Tannehill got better when he left, and maybe it's just coincidence, but it seems like there's a lot of coincidences. So, I mean, yeah, I'm firing him, but yeah.
It'll be interesting to see who they hire, because the Jaguars' job, they were saying earlier today. I mean, we said it earlier, but they clinched the #1 spot in the draft, which obviously means they're going to take Trevor Lawrence. They said they're going to fire Doug Marrone at the end of the year. They said their head coaching position is going to be way more. People are really going to want it now because they're going to have Trevor Lawrence. I mean, imagine if the Jets had the #1 pick, you'd probably get any coach that you'd want. I would say any coach would want that job, being in New York, getting Trevor Lawrence. Again, if they had the #1 pick. Now you don't have that, so it'd be interesting to see who they can actually hire, who actually wants that job. Like, would you want to keep Darnold? Do you want to move on from him? You're going to probably trade down in the draft. Like, I mean, they have a lot of options going into the offseason.
If you're a head coach, which team would you rather head coach for? Jaguars or Jets?
I mean, I'd rather be the Jaguars because you have Trevor Lawrence. I mean, if he's really going to be a generational type quarterback, and
I probably agree.
Guy, I mean, I'd rather go into a situation with the quarterback than with having a dicey quarterback, or just not even having a quarterback at all. So
yeah, no, I'd probably agree. I mean, I guess the Jags are probably the pick there, even though I'd much rather coach for the Jets. But yeah, if the Jets had the #1 pick, the only thing deterring head coaches would be the fact that they are the Jets and they're just not a good organization historically. But yeah.
And I'm pretty sure. I mean, this is just something quick, but I'm pretty sure the Jags actually do have a lot of money to spend next year, so that's also going to be something. The Jets do too, but if you have Lawrence, you could build the offensive line, you could do a lot of stuff. So
I'm not exactly sure how. I don't. It's been so long since like the Yannick Ngakoue situation and all that, so I would need to be brushed up on all that, but. I mean, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to bring in a lot of free agents. I'm not exactly sure how that ended up all turning out, but because it was like the Jaguars were just cheap and didn't want to pay him or something. I don't know. It was a while ago. I used to remember the whole situation, but I've forgotten it at this point. It's been so long since then, but yeah, I mean, for sure. Any other games? I mean, that might just be it for this.
I'd say that's probably it. I don't think
Chargers beat the Broncos means nothing.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of these games, I guess one thing that we could say is the Bengals beat the Texans. So the Texans pick is guaranteed to be in the top 5, and they don't have their first-round pick. It's going to go to Miami. So Miami's going to have – they could possibly make the playoffs and also have a top 5 pick, which they could use to draft someone, maybe an offensive lineman, or they could even trade down and just get more picks and more players. So, I mean, that trade, it was bad at the time, and it's even worse now. And they still own, I think, like their second-round pick next year or something like that. So they still have way more picks from the Texans too.
I think Bill O'Brien might be the worst GM I've personally seen, and that might be a tough thing to say because I couldn't name the GM of every single team in the league, but still, just a string of horrible trades. He probably kept his job way too long. I mean, he's a horrible GM, subpar head coach. At times he looked average, but that was really at best. I mean that the Texans might as well just not be a team for the next 4 years. I mean, the only thing they have is Deshaun Watson, but even if they keep him, I mean, I'm not sure what they're going to do. I mean, I'm sure he's probably going to stay with the team. But
he signed that contract. Yeah. But if I'm him, I'm trying to get out of there.
I'd assume so.
I mean, it's not like you even have your picks. You don't even have your pick. One, your team's terrible anyways, and you don't even have your picks. I mean, you're not going to be good for another at least 3, 4, or 5 years. So,
I mean, Deshaun Watson's a national championship winner, went to Clemson. I'd assume he has some desire to at least compete in games. The Texans probably won't be doing that for the next few years, but yeah. All right, that'll wrap it up for Sunday night's episode. Overall, I mean, this is the best time of the year, really. Well, I mean, I guess it's like December, 27th or whatever, but 28th now. But, I mean, this is the best time of the football year. About last week of the season, let's see what happens with the seeding. Some teams are already technically started with their playoffs. And then actually after this, it's the playoffs. I mean, it's best football games of the year by far to me, at least. So we're going to have a lot of that. I'm sure more MLB stuff will be happening as, the weeks go on. NBA, I mean, we'll see. 72 game season. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, but
yeah, we'll make our official playoff predictions. I mean, Super Bowl predictions after next week when we know what the seedings are and everything. So that'll be an episode. So, I mean, it seems like we may have the same team from the AFC. But we'll see what happens from the NFC. So I guess we'll have to.
We may not. We may not. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe. I'd be surprised, but I guess we'll see.
You may go Bills. I don't know.
I may go Bills. I'm a big Bill guy. I don't know.
I mean, you are. I think if one of us were to not go Chiefs, it'd probably be you. But
it'd probably be me. Yeah.
But I mean, that doesn't necessarily. I mean, I guess we're probably both going to go Chiefs. But I mean, who knows? You might go Bills. Maybe I go. Maybe you go Ravens. Who knows?
Maybe.
Probably not, but yeah.
Yeah.
NFC, it could be anything, but yeah. I mean,
NFC could be any team. It really could.
Except for probably not the Bears, but.
Well, no, not the Bears. Or probably whoever comes out of the NFC East. But I would say there's probably 3 or 4 teams you could choose.
Yeah. All right. Well, that'll do it. If you're watching this, thanks for watching till the end. YouTube, Spotify. I guess we got a Twitter now at 9 Yards Podcast. It's a little bit different than our other at 9 Yards Podcast on Twitter. Instagram is at the whole 9 yards, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, drop a follow or whatever. And we'll see you guys. A few days?
Yeah, a few days.
All right. See you.